wish them the very best in their academic future. And now joining me in studio back again is Samuel Otieno, Director of Advocacy and Partnerships at Zizi Afrique Foundation, as well as Professor Caroline Omolando, the Deputy Vice Chancellor in charge of Academic Affairs at the Open University of Kenya. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining me again. We try to cover as much as we can. There's a lot to discuss when the KCSE results are announced. They're a big thing in this country. We've seen the celebrations across the country. And let's talk about some of that. Let me start with you, Mr. Otieno. The number of A's, which is something every school talks about. We had one of the teachers saying this is the first A plane in 16 years. It was a big thing for them, and that has been the case. But generally, the number of A planes rose this year by 447. What are your thoughts on this?
Okay. Thank you, Ben. I think one, that's good news that we have more A's. But I think in terms of looking at these results in the entirety, you basically don't have to look at the absolute numbers, which is 447 new A's. If you look at it in terms of the percentage, looking at the candidature, you know, then it's very minimal. The increase is very minimal because I think we are at 0.18% having gotten A's against 0.14% last year. But having said that, I think there was a fundamental improvement in terms of the grading system, the one that considers mathematics and then the top language subjects and then the others, which I think is a good thing because it then provides room for most of the students to be able to leverage their strengths rather than the system, the past system that boxed them into the so-called compulsory subjects. So I think it's good that the numbers in actual terms are up, a small percentage, but I think it's a progressive kind of achievement because then the grading system is helping our children, come out much better.
On the issue of A's and that battle, and also the new grading system.
Yeah, thank you so much. When we think about the new grading system, for me, as an educationist and as a parent and just as a general member of the society, I believe that one should not be defined by a grade they get because of an exam they took just over a very short period of time, yet they have spent so many years in school. For example, high school, we are talking about 4 years, and you want to measure me against just an exam I take in about 3 weeks. There's so much more that can define a person. Right. And that is why we say the circumstances under which somebody takes an exam, and there's so many other things that may happen externally and internally around this person will determine how they perform. And therefore, the fact that we may have a certain number of students who score A's, it is good. We appreciate those. It means they have a certain capacity, certain capabilities that under certain pressure, they are able to get that grade. But at the same time, we should also be able to appreciate those who score the other grades, because then that is what they were able to get at that particular time, and then they can move up and say, this is what I get. But besides that, I would also want to say, given the new grading system, I think it also provides our students to also have a raised self-esteem. We know how it is when results are being announced or are going to be announced. There are those actually who keep off from everybody because they know they probably have scored a low grade and they will be defined by that grade. And so when we have more students getting higher grades because then we are able to pick on what they performed better in, I think it's a good thing for our children. Right. Then even the cases of suicide, now that we even have had one of the news items talking about suicide, we've had young children. What would a 14-year-old child know about suicide? What would a 19-year-old, 20-year-old child know about suicide? But it's because of those circumstances that come around how they are defined. So I think it's a good thing that we have that.
So, from where you sit, why is the new grading system better?
One, I think the idea is that, with the coming of the competence-based curriculum, we are having a major shift towards having an education system that has something for everyone. And that is fundamental in many ways because our system has been so discriminatory. So it's such that our national examinations have not been necessarily to gauge what you know, but it has always been an elimination kind of formula. You know, so get people sit an exam for a few days and then decide who goes to the university and who remains. And so what this system is trying to do is in many ways trying to amplify the bit around the different and the varied strengths that that children or students, for that matter, would have in a classroom. And there's been a big debate even within the 844 system where, you know, we had the so-called compulsory subjects. And a lot of the times they defined the mini grade that you get. So I think it's a move in the right direction. Of course, they are not candidates who sat the examinations within the context of CBC. But what it does is that it has provided an opportunity for students to benefit from their strengths and be able to get, you know, a generally good, better mini grade that then again now opens for them opportunities in the next stage of their lives. And I think that is something that really needs to be encouraged.
Now, one of our top stories, and it's one of our, the angles of today's coverage that we took is looking at what looks like blatant inequality in terms of, now again back to the A's, the top performers, how they're distributed. So from that data is that 81% of A-plane scorers came from national schools. Very few came from the county and sub-county schools. 0.5% only coming from sub-county schools. You know, bringing out the issue, Prof, of these students receive equal opportunities when they go to these various schools, county schools. Do they have the same facilities, same classrooms, same laboratories, teachers, all this? Do you agree that it points to a kind of inequality with the different levels of schools?
Yeah, I think we must appreciate the fact that not all schools are endowed in the same manner when we think about resources that are available within these schools. By virtue of these schools being either a national school, an extra county school, up to the very low levels, And of course, the whole story of private schools also comes in where we talk about private schools also being well endowed with resources. We also must pay attention to the fact that at selection point, as these students graduate from the primary school level into secondary school level, the grade you get at primary school level also has a very high determinant on the nature of school you are also placed in at secondary school level. And for me, having also had an experience of working at high school level as a high school teacher, that actually brings in a lot of, what would I say? It also creates a situation where we may be able to understand why students who get into national schools have the ability of performing a little higher than those who don't perform, because those are those who are those in national schools are selected from around the country, countrywide, and those who have the high scores. That would be one determinant. But besides that, and putting that aside, we also have to appreciate there are those who still go to these county schools and maybe the extra county schools who have low grades, but still turn out with a very high grade at the end of Form 4. Right. So what does that also mean? That we can't also peg entirely the whole concept of high performance to resources. The effort a student puts into it also plays a lot of role in helping me as a student getting the grade that I get. So a balance has to be created between that.
Then comes the question of, and I'll come to you, Mr. Otieno, of the private schools, which are very well endowed in terms of facilities, but we don't see them much when the KCSE results come out. But just hold that thought. We take a quick commercial break, pay a couple of bills here on NTV tonight. We're coming back as we try to make sense of the 2024 KCSE results. Stay with us.
Mandizi kiba pia sinakuanga ya yellow. I mean.
Na round hii January tuna survive na maringos, manjoti, mabite, popcorns. Odibets app. Very nice. Very nice.
Skuman January na Odibets. Wekelea kwa Odibets app upate za kupiga January. Odibets, very nice.
The next executive director of the foundation, B.
Don't you think it's time for me to hold a more senior role in the company?
I'm appointing you as the new executive director of the foundation.
What?
Me. Alexander Sagrado III is the new executive director of the Sagrado Foundation.
You took everything away from me. Everything away from me. Why don't you just die?
Widows wear.
This is Africa!
Emergency protocol initiated.
You're the best person who is suited to guide.
Yes. I wish you good luck, Godspeed, and all the best.
Oh, are you ready?
If you don't get it, forget about it.
Download OneXBet app and enjoy the variety of sports anytime, anywhere. OneXBet app, at the heart of the game.
Looking at even the first 4 months of the current financial year, and if you look at on a prorated basis, we actually lower by 128 billion Kenya shillings vis-a-vis 78 billion a similar period a year ago. I don't think there's a scope of a financing program. Probably now that leaves us to either a precautionary lending instrument, what we had prior 2000 and before 2018, the standby arrangement, or even a non-financing program. On the Eurobond side, we have the 900 plus maturing in 2027, but it's maturing in piecemeal. So this year we're anticipating $300 million maturity around May thereabout. So that has been staggered.
Welcome back. You're watching NTV tonight, and in studio with me to help me make sense of the KCSE 2024 results, Professor Caroline Omulando, DVC Academics at the Open University of Kenya, as well as Samuel Otieno, Director of Advocacy and Partnerships at Zizi Africa Foundation. Mr. Otieno, I was coming to you for the question on why we see disparities in terms of the top performing schools based on the system, on the levels, national schools, county schools, sub-county schools. And additionally, if it's a matter of resources, then private schools have resources, but we don't see them, appear quite dominantly in the KCSE, top lists. Why is that?
Thank you, Ben, for that question. I'll be a bit different. I hold a different view from Prof when it comes to the whole issue around inequalities. I think there is a lot of inequalities within our education sector and our education system in this country. And at Zizi Africa, we, together with our partners, consolidate data and evidence, and the evidence to suggest that actually the school that you go to has got a high, is a bigger determinant on the outcomes that you'll be able to get at KCSE. And why am I saying this? We all know that the national schools only comprise like about 4% of the schools in this country. Yes. And then if you look at that against the extreme, which is at the lowest level, the sub-county schools, which are like 54%, then you get to know where the population, the biggest population lies. And what is happening is that if you're finding 83% of the A's coming from the nationals, it tells you something about, one, how we are distributing our resources. And you will agree with me that if it comes to teacher, distribution and teacher management, those are the schools that has got some of the most experienced teachers. They are the most well-staffed. When it comes also to even, the resources, if you look at even the formula that we use for capitation, then definitely those are the schools also with the highest population. So in terms of the actual amount that goes to those schools, they get more resources than the others. And I'm tempted to believe, as somebody who works in civil society, that actually our education system is designed to be discriminative in many ways. Because where is the effort in trying to bring these schools to some level of parity? We still have schools that don't have laboratories in this country. And the students are expected to compete with the others. So I think it is something that we need to have a very serious conversation about as a country, so that any child should not be disadvantaged just by the mere fact that they did not go to what we call the national schools.
So what's the solution? How do we salvage the forgotten majority, which is those extra county schools, the day schools being a big part of them?
We definitely need to have some form of way of affirmative kind of action, where you bring more resources to where they are needed, where 54% are, and actually be able to bring them to a level where there are basic minimum standards that are met for any given school, because those standards are there and the government has them. But also there is the whole issue around using data and evidence to make decisions. Why is it that we are still finding the schools that are well-resourced and that have been well-resourced for over the years still being the ones where capitation is going high? We are not using data to make decisions and say, we know schools, for instance, that do not have some of the basic facilities, right, who then need to have more. But I think there have been some attempts. Of course, we know that even in the whole debate around the new classrooms, I think there has been some sort of a solution that is coming up, that is emerging in the way the national government is working with members of parliament and the CDF, for example, to ensure that these classrooms are built. But I think what we still don't have is a deliberate effort to ensure that all children across the country are able to enjoy some basic minimum standards in terms of the learning environment. So our education is still largely very discriminative, and there are a lot of inequalities that affect performance.
Thanks. Prof, as an educationist, do you see any attempt, do you see any willingness to try and achieve some parity in as much as these matters are concerned?
Yeah, there's a lot of willingness from our government. Just like my co-speaker here has indicated, quite a bit is going on. Right. Even when we think about the issues of, for example, the laboratories, the classrooms, right, and all, there's quite a bit. And even when we come down to the issue of the teacher-student ratios, we've had quite a bit from the Ministry of Education through Teacher Service Commission, talks about we want to employ a certain number of teachers between now and this other time, So there's a consciousness about the lack that there is, and I think the government, within the resources that are available, is making some effort to ensure that that is attained.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, for a second there, you made me feel guilty. I went to a national school back in the day. So let's switch to the higher education qualification, which is the ultimate goal for a lot of the learners in high school. And we saw from today's results, the country recording the highest university qualification in 8 years. Those with C+ and above are 22% of total candidates, 201,301. Is that a good number, Prof?
Given what we tell our children, given what teachers tell their students in schools, one would look at this number as a very low number, because I don't want my child to go to school and come back with that other grade that is under the 73-75%. Right. Each one of us wants their child above in the 25 and above percentage of C+ and above. But let's maybe go back to our very first comments before we came to this sitting, where you asked about what we thought about the general overview of these results. And we're saying that the fact that we have a certain number that gets the A's, it doesn't imply that the 73, the 75% that have the lower grade can now be thrown to the dogs. And that is the end of the road for them. It's just a matter of us asking ourselves and telling ourselves, if we have this percentage that has made it to the university, that is good enough. And maybe the other thing we must also be very alert and alive to is the fact that the manner of training or the kinds of training that happen at these different levels of learning are very different. While the training that happens at the university level may be more knowledge-based, and of course, with those the programs and courses that have the practical elements being brought in, we'll discover that the training that happens at the lower level is more practical oriented, because we need the two groups of people in society for us to move forward. We can't say we only want a knowledge-based society or we only want a practical oriented society. They must work together. So these are two groups of students we must appreciate. And given the kind of the number of universities we have in Kenya, and the kind of resources we have within our universities, I think this is a number then that can be uptaken within those institutions and then allow the others to trickle to the other levels, so that we work within the building the economy, so that by 2030 we have an economy that is at the level that it should be, where we are able to utilize the skills that our students have attained through the colleges to bring the economy to where it should be. Right. That is what I would say.
I would like us to talk about TVET, but before we do that, so Tiano, talk to us about the university qualifiers. What do you attribute the rise in the number to, and what is your view of the place of the knowledge-based and the university qualification and the mad rush for that by the education system, to the detriment of everyone else who falls short of that then?
I think that has been a major gap in our education system, because our system has always hoped and prepared us all to go to the university. But I think, as it is apparent from the data from all over the world, there is no possibility that everybody will be able to be at that level. And of course, there is a saying that says, if you judge a fish by climbing a tree, then it might fail almost all the time. And so the idea is that we need the university, because that is where thought leadership is nurtured. That is where a lot of innovation and creativity is supposed to be nurtured, and that is what actually guides, the path that a country takes in terms of being globally competitive. But I think we must also be alive to the fact that not all students will go to the university. And for those who don't go to the university, I think for me the most fundamental question is, what are the opportunities that we are giving them to be useful in society? Because in the past we've had a system where if you don't go to the university, too bad for you. If you happen to get a diploma course somewhere, good for you. But if without that one, every parent, like Prof says, would feel the children have failed. I think there is a need for us to begin now moving away. And I'm very happy that consistently the ministry has decided not to rank the schools and to rank the candidates, which is a good thing in terms of the kind of society that we need to build. And I think it is time we begin to now educate and create awareness amongst our parents, amongst our society, that there is much more to just going to the university. And so that the 2024 candidates must now know that whatever the grade they got, there is a way in which they can be able to make good use of that, because at the end of the day, a lot of the times we go to school because you want to be able to thrive in the modern society, in the world that you live in, but you also want to be able to get the economic opportunities. And we have a national qualification framework that allows you to rise from different pathways. You could start as an artisan person, as somebody who does some technical work and still rise to that particular level. So I think the conversation that we must be having and the conversation that we need to have with government and where a lot of resources, of course, need to go is actually looking at what these other 70% would be getting. And that is where you started very well with talking about TVET, and we have got different levels of TVET in national polytechnics. But also let us not forget, and of course CBC has been designed to cure this, let us not forget the talent and the sports arm, which has actually proven to be able to transform, people's lives and provide a lot of opportunities.
Talk to us very quickly, Sotiano, about the TVETs before I come to you, Prof. The TVETs and the other level, the tertiary institutions, and do you think they are designed well? Do we have enough of them to deal with this vast majority of these other students?
Ben, that's a very interesting question, because at Zizi Afrique we work a lot also in TVET and in supporting TVET. And one of the challenges that TVET has faced in the past has been the attitude around TVETs. And like Prof says, nobody wants to take the child to secondary school to go to a polytechnic. And in the past there was even a challenge. A lot of them were referred to as village polytechnic. I'm sure you don't want your child to come all the way to Form 4 and go to a village establishment. But I think the most fundamental thing is that there has been progress in terms of increasing the number of institutions, but still looking at the percentage of students who qualify or who ordinarily would be candidates for TVET, we are still short in terms of spaces, in terms of places. But then there is a fundamental question of funding for these particular institutions. You have got the national polytechnics, which are funded generally by the national government, but you have the very lower ones, the village, the vocational training centers at the very lower level, which are funded by the county government. And again, data and evidence that we have is that counties have done a very poor job in terms of making sure they're equipped. Then, of course, the third issue is around the variety of courses that are available at that particular level and how you link those courses. One of the projects that we are doing is called the Future of Work, where what we are trying to do is to identify skills that would ordinarily be marketable in different places and trying to link the industry with the training so that the training institutions at TVET level only train people who would be required or who the industry would be able to absorb. And so that linkage between industry and the training has been a major problem. There is the issue of funding for these institutions and the variety of courses, because for most of the TVET institutions, you find there is very limited variety around courses. But beyond that, I think the attitude needs to change. And we've also seen data to indicate that among young people, there are also the emerging cases where a student qualifies to go to university, but they end up taking, which is something that we should encourage if we are to industrialize as we have been
Prof,
aiming to.
You are a university don. What is your view of TVETs in these tertiary institutions and how they have been set up?
Yeah, just like we have indicated, it is important that we appreciate that we have those students who qualify to go to institutions that offer education at that particular level. And for me, looking at what the kind of education that is offered in TVETs, I think it is okay, in the sense that this is curricula that is defined for those kind of students at that particular level, for them to attain a very specified skill set that would be good for them once they leave that college to be able to do certain things. And so the fact that we grade that, I would say, curricular content in that manner, it is fine, so that we are able to produce persons who are able to do certain jobs, take up certain jobs in society that require those kind of skills. So I think it is okay, so that we have that kind of thing. And that is why worldwide, we don't have all colleges, all universities grading all students at one level. We now even have courses that are now even referred to as the non-degree courses. And it is because of appreciating the kind of education that is offered at this particular level. So it's an issue of us just appreciating it and understanding what kind of skill do I want to get out of this and what do I want to do with that skill.
As we wind this up, even as you rightly say that we need more capacity in the TVETs and the tertiary level institutions, Would you say there's also there's need for the government to expand even further, even the university space, as it were, because we have almost 1 million candidates sitting for their KCSE and a good number of them getting lost in that system, which is not right. Is there a need to expand even the number of university places that we have?
Expanding the number of university spaces, I don't think that would be a very good solution. Why? Because we are already working we are already working within an environment where we are saying the universities feel they are underfunded, all right? And it's because of the circumstances under which we are working in and all. So we have to appreciate that. But I think what universities now need to do is to think about diversified ways in which they can still offer the same education under the circumstances under which we are. Let me now then be a little biased, given that I am here. For example, the whole concept of the Open University of Kenya came on board because we are saying the brick and mortar universities may not have the capacity to accommodate all these students by virtue of the nature of resources they have on the ground. Is it possible then we can find a solution where we are saying these students who are unable to move to their university, stay there and learn from there? Is it possible we can provide another way, another channel through which, where I am, I can still get that education, same quality, and maybe even higher because you have better interaction with your facilitators, you have more space to interact on the online space, and I think this is even something that is also being taken up by even the brick and mortar through other models. So I think it's an issue of universities diversifying and being dynamic in the manner in which they approach the offering of the courses they do.
Stotina, I want to come to you for the final thoughts, but before I do that, I can't let you go without you giving me your thought in 30 seconds of the new university funding model. What do you think about it?
It is a good idea, and of course we have had funding of university students. It's not a new thing, yeah? But the fact that it has been thought about in a different way and the community out here have not understood the manner in which it is operating, I think that's why we've had a lot of outcries, yeah? And I do appreciate actually what the government has done. Quite recently, we had a task force that was put in place to look into what are some of those shortfalls that are causing a lot of outcry. And I think if all those issues are handled, it is a good idea because there are many students out here who need that support.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Prof. Stotiana, have the final word. Is the new university funding model a good idea? It seems to be locking out a lot of people from what we can see and report on. But what are your final thoughts on all these issues, very quickly?
Yeah, Ben, and again, based on an analysis of actually this particular funding model and the fact that now the number of students who've qualified for university has increased, I think there is a serious implication of the funding model, and there's a lot that needs to be done to make sure that that funding model, one, works, and two, that it helps students who are from disadvantaged backgrounds to be able to access education. But I think beyond that, there is a much more bigger issue that we need to look at when thinking about exams and what we need to be getting in the education system. This issue around exam cheating and everything that has happened, it's time for us to have a very serious national conversation on our values and our value systems in this country. Because why would a trained teacher want to aid a child to cheat in exams? And this has been happening from time to time. And you heard of the number of students who are going to be disadvantaged because of that malpractice. I think we need to have a conversation on where the values of integrity, honesty, and just making our exams to be things that help us know our strengths rather than things that exclude us as being the guiding factor. And of course, lastly, we did a quick analysis before we came here. I told you we work a lot on data. And we looked at, if you look at the number of students who sat KCPE, these cohorts, if you do an analysis and look at the number of those, because the government had told us at that time that there was a 100% transition. If you look at the number of those who sat KCPE and the ones who sat KCSE this time, there's about 19% of children who cannot be accounted for. I don't believe it was because of natural attrition like death or something. These are people who perhaps joined the secondary school and just got lost somewhere. Therefore, we welcome the whole idea of receipts, which now will be happening in June. But we think very much as actors in the civil society that it doesn't need to be June. It can be done much earlier so that these people are able to join, the tertiary institutions with the others.
All right. Yeah. Thank you so much, lady and gentlemen, for joining us tonight to help us make sense of the KCSE exam results. Samuel Otieno, Director, Advocacy and Partnerships at Zizi Afrique Foundation, as well as Professor Caroline Omolando, the Deputy Vice Chancellor in charge of Academic Affairs at the Open University of Kenya. Many thanks.
Thank you.
That's why we leave it on NTV tonight, this Thursday, the 9th day of January 2025. For all of us here, thank you for watching. I'm Ben Kitili. Good night from Nairobi.